Hi guys, welcome to Twin Perspective. I'm Joe.
I'm James. Who dat? Hey.
And tonight we are going to be presenting our top 50 horror films of the 80s.
Yes.
This is part 1, number 50 through 26. And as we list our movies, of course, full spoilers on those movies, because we're going to say a few things about them, why we like them so much. We lived through the 80s, so we have a unique perspective from 9 to 19.
19.
So we were...
Puberty, all that stuff.
Yeah, we were impressionable, and we loved horror movies, slasher movies.
Every genre of horror film. Slasher, thriller horror, action comedy horror, romantic.
There are romantic horrors.
Dracula.
Right.
Oh, Gary Oldman was so beautiful in that.
Really? What? You mean when he had the sideburns or when his face was all like this?
Yeah.
But it was romantic.
That makes it real tough making my list. It's like what's horror and what's not. What he included might not be included on my list because it wasn't horror enough, or we included some movies because they're on every horror list, and some movies we didn't just because it's not. But if it's in a horror franchise, I think maybe I lean towards it. I don't know. It's difficult to say. There's science fiction horror. There's the comedy horrors,
Yeah, like we decided Terminator isn't horror. That's more sci-fi because all of the movies follow this sci-fi.
It's the most horror version of the Terminator, but it's not horror. It's an action sci-fi.
But we both included Aliens, which is also action, but it is a horror movie and part of a horror franchise, which is I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Terminator as a franchise felt more sci-fi. Aliens is included on this list because
but if it downright scared you, the Terminator scared the bejesus out of somebody and they included it on their list.
Yeah.
More power to them.
Right.
That's why it's not on ours. There are going to be some movies slept off.
Twilight Zone.
You were mentioning,
we left that off.
We started thinking, the last segment was kind of horror. But you mentioned the Italian directors,
Argento and
Bava and...
I'm not a connoisseur of those. I don't really have any of that on my list.
And I have one. And a lot of them were 70s, This is the 80s. But a lot of them were 80s too.
Yeah, there were a few in the 80s. And, we were fans of Friday the 13th, that series. I think more than any of them. And I compared a lot of those movies. I watched a lot of them in retrospect, but compared them held them to the standard that I gave Friday the 13th. A lot of them failed. Some of them were all gore, no substance. Some of them was too much substance. All I know is that if I didn't watch it multiple times, it didn't leave a big enough impression on me. And my list is definitely full of my favorite horror movies from the 80s that I grew up in the 80s and watched and loved. And if some of your favorites aren't included, like Chopping Mall or Sleepaway Camp, then I'm sorry, but to each their own.
There's one I'm thinking that's in my 30s that's a really good movie that's just, there's so many poorly made movies above it, but it just didn't reach the horror it's just a really good movie. But as far as scare factor, probably 70s would be the list that'll be most affected by the scare factor. When you get in our top 10, it'll probably be the only movies that really super scared the shit balls out of us.
Well, like you said, there's different subgenres to horror. So there are the ultimate classics that are perfect films, and then some that are just downright comedies, and then some that actually pull off the scare factor. That it's hard to tell. My 10 is full of all of that. My top 10.
And I know our 50, starting at number 50, we have the same one at 50 because we don't know where to put it. Right. In the pantheon of all-time favorite movies, this movie is up there for me, top 25.
Right.
So it should be number 1 on this list, or at least top 10. But
In some delusional universe, this movie is up there in the top 10 for sure.
It is. It is one of the greatest movies of all time. One of the greatest screenplays of all time. And it deals directly with the horror genre.
Right.
It's a comedy.
Yes, it is a comedy. It's not a horror. It's. We both put it at 50 to give it a recognition it deserves. Admitting that it is not a horror movie, but because it's a parody of horror movies,
it was made,
and because there's murders in it, and because there's dead bodies piling up, albeit with horrible effects, we're going to acknowledge it. So we're going to start our list off. Number 50 for both of us is
student bodies, student bodies, student bodies.
And we've talked about this movie before.
The greatest movie on this list that we are talking about at this time. I thought you hated eggplant.
I'm sorry, honey. Hollow wooden bulls make me hot.
You can't get student bodies in England. Like, it's like Region 2 or Region 1. I think they're Region 1 and we're Region 2.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't get a copy that'll play in their DVDs version there.
It's okay. You'll survive. No, this is a movie you have to see. And you have to see it several times, because when you see it the first time, you're going to laugh so hard, you're going to want to watch it again. I promise you.
Or it's going to go right over your head.
It's not. It's the stupidest fucking thing you've ever seen. And that's what makes it so brilliant.
When the dog meows and farts, just hang in there. Hang in there, I promise you.
No, recognize that this is the kind of absurdity you're going to get. And if you're down with that, keep watching. But if you're not down with that, just keep watching anyway.
Yeah, and screw Scary Movie and Scream.
Right.
Because Student Bodies was the first.
Student Bodies. And
so embarrassed. They called themselves Alan Smythe and Mickey Rose and shit. Gave each other surnames. They were embarrassed. These were people with jobs. They put out a brilliant film.
When the girl's hiding under the sheet with the corpse and she farts.
She didn't fart, the corpse farted.
And everybody in the room ponders for a second where the fart came from, and then the nurse says, "It's a well-known fact that dead people can urinate, pass gas, or even have erections."
Boing. You just hear boing.
And then she farts again. And there's smoke coming out. Everybody clears out the room.
It was the corpse that farted.
The friend picks up the sheet, and she's passed out from her own fart. She wakes up and says, "Where are we? Cleveland?"
And this was 1980.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You want to say something before we go on?
Now, who's going on? Who's first?
Man, that's funny.
That's good. It's a well-known fact.
Dead men tell no tales, but they fart.
Kills only those who have sex. Mm-hmm. That could wipe out the entire senior class. All right, we've spent 9 minutes on the introduction and number 50.
That's right. So I guess you can go first.
Student Body.
With your number 49, and then I'll reveal my 49.
So yeah, I'll let you know when there's must-see TV coming up. But except for Student Bodies, like I said, top 10.
That's must-see VHS.
That's must-see. Start our list. Now here we go with stuff you might not want to see. My number 49 is Leviathan.
What?
Peter Weller, Richard Crenna, and I brain farted.
Is that the one with
Amanda Pays?
Is that the one with Twin Peaks' very own?
No, that's Deep Star 6.
Oh, shit.
See, the same year they had The Abyss, Deep Star 6, and Leviathan all came out. Deep Star 6 was probably the worst of the bunch.
Right.
And
But it was horror.
it had Miguel Ferrer, and it was underwater creature movie, and it was cool.
Yeah, monster movies are horror movies for sure.
It's fine. Matt McCoy.
And then Leviathan.
And the Abyss was James Cameron, and that was more of a drama.
Romantic horror.
Yeah. Romantic sci-fi.
Romantic sci-fi.
That one's not on my list. It's the best of the bunch. Leviathan is right in the middle. You get the chick from Beverly Hills Cop and Daniel Stern.
Daniel Stern, that's right.
That's it. And Hector Elizondo and
I got all those movies confused.
We do have a peeker in it.
Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson
from Twin Peaks: The Return fame.
Yeah. So if anything, I watched the movie and I just enjoy seeing these people I know from other movies all running around from a monster.
How did you feel about the kills?
They were okay. It was fine. I keep all these 80s movies. There's an eye out for what we find to be mostly substandard work.
Right.
In the genre.
We are big critiques of prosthetics and practical effects.
And I guess for what it was trying to do, it was fine. It's like putty and then you just run your fingers through it. So the melting body just looks like you took your fingers and ran it through putty. And that's, well. But, they got it from the vodka and it was, bitch, we still here. Ernie Hudson says, it must be hard what you've gone through. He's like, gone through? Bitch, we still here. So that alone put it on my list, number 49.
Very good. I like that movie. It's
Peter
not on my
Weller,
list.
man. We need Peter Weller. More Peter Weller.
Yeah, Peter Weller's great. Of Unknown Origin is a horror movie from the 80s that he was in.
Yeah, and it's in my top.
It's
below top.
It's on your
below
list.
50. It's below 50.
It didn't make my list yet. It made my top 60, but not my top 50.
Yeah, it's right there.
So at number 49 for me is Altered States, which was a very trippy, way over my head when I saw it as a child. I didn't understand it at all. Watched it later on as I got older and was able to understand a little more of it. However, the second time around when I watched it, I was doing a lot of acid, so maybe my perception of the film would be totally different if I watched it now. I haven't watched it in like 10 years, honestly.
But it's an acid trip.
But it is number 49 on my list, and I feel like it's a horror movie, and it's one of those psychological horror movies. It exists on that plane, which works really well for me in the genre, another subgenre, the psychological horror of it all, which a lot of times won't have any gross special effects in it at all. What did you think about the effects in Altered States? It was a lot of deformities and stuff like that.
Yeah, it was great. It stands the test of time. It was really bad effects with the lights and stuff, but it was also like 2001. I mean, that's groundbreaking, and it stands the test of time. I mean, it still looks good.
That's right. Aha's Take On Me video paid homage to Altered States, and that's one of the most highly acclaimed music videos of all time.
I like it.
So, and that was William Hurt, and
first starring performance.
Mm-hmm. And he went on to get a lot of Oscar attention. So that's my number 49. What you got for number 48? I have Altered States, and I'm assuming you have that on your list somewhere.
Yeah, it's a little higher up. If you want to call it a horror movie. Number 48 for me is Want to play? I'm your friend of the end. Heidi ho. Child's Play.
Child's Play.
Number 48.
48.
It must be recognized.
Once again, Brad Dourif, part of the lynch mob.
Yeah, we're gonna keep track of that. No lynchians and student bodies.
No. Well, there were Lynchian-like characters in it, but
Child's Play is the best of the Child's Play movies, the Chucky movies. They are really good movies, by the way. They're getting better and better.
Yeah, they're fun.
And now it's Sonny. I don't know. It's a new movie. Anyway, Yeah, I'm mentioning it. I can't see me putting it any higher because even though I do remember going and seeing it and I do remember enjoying it, and it did nothing wrong. It's a doll.
Yeah, it's a doll. Ultimately, that's the issue. You could just kick this thing
and it's low on my list. It should be higher. I'm warranting it attention. It warrants attention.
Yeah, at least you did that.
But you have to pay attention to the kid in most of the movie, and stab me in the eye with an olive fork.
Yeah, kids.
I don't want to have to do that if I don't have to. You have to with it, but it's like, it's not good.
If you have good kids and good characters, then
they're not good.
Yeah, right. Brad Dourif was about the best thing about Child's Play. I mean, I don't even remember the special effects being all that. We used to buy the Fangoria magazines. It just didn't.
Yeah, there was nothing for Child's Play. Just a melted doll. Well, thanks for telling me how it ends.
Or did it end? Or will it ever end?
It won't. We have a TV show and a movie.
But, give it its kudos because it did establish a franchise and it's fun. It's fun enough.
Oh, did it make your list?
It did not make my list.
Ah, good. So we can exit out now. Goodbye, Chucky. Batteries not included.
Appeared higher on other people's lists that did lists like this, I noticed.
But the movies we have on our list are better.
Number 48 on my list is House. Directed by
Steve Miner.
And I think Steve Miner is a very good horror director, responsible for Friday the 13th Part 2 and 3, as well as Lake Placid, which was just awesome. One of the better, I don't know if we're going to do a 90s list or a 2000s list, but if we do, whenever, I don't even know what year that came out, but that
Lake Placid.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm a fan of Steve Miner. House was fun. I think that was produced by Sean Cunningham too.
Yep.
And I thought the effects were good. I liked the zombie dead army dude, whatever he was.
Bull.
Yeah, from Night Court. He looked like Jason to me. I thought that was cool.
Believe it or not, yeah. I'm walking on it.
Cat. And then you had Bill Maher. And
George Wendt. From Cheers.
And it was fun. You wasn't quite sure what was really going on at first, haunted house or whatever. And it's been a long time since I've seen that movie. But it left an impression on me. It was fun. I remember that if I had a chance to watch something at the time that one came out, I would rather rewatch that one. It was fun enough to rewatch. It was the greatest American hero, too. Hell yeah. And Jason. That's what it felt like, But it existed on different elements. It felt like a multi-dimensional thing and hauntings and also graphic violence. So it satisfied a lot of what I expect from a horror movie. So House. My number 48. Is it on your list?
It is on my list.
All right. What you got at number 47?
Damn, it's higher on my list than I thought.
It's a good movie.
My number 47 is Critters. Critters with Scream Queen Dee Wallace Stone.
Yes.
And a kid that was just our age when we were that age when the movie came out. And he was the smartest one out of the bunch, including the father. And so it was a way for an egotistical child like myself to be like, that's exactly what would have to happen. Because we lived way out, away from everyone. If critters attacked our house, no one would hear us scream.
Mm-hmm.
And me and Joe would have to be the ones to save the frickin' trailer. And it's got 4 neat sequels. Well, I mean, they went to outer space with Brad Dourif and 2 other peakers, Eric Dare. The Critters fought Leonardo DiCaprio and Francis Bay in Part 3.
Mm-hmm.
Part 2 is just a necessary evil, I guess. But the first one was fun and funny, and They blew that damn house up at the end. And they had aliens, and that all that was just a whole another story. It could have been a 2-hour movie. But they just told you just enough to where it's like, okay, I get it. They're being hunted. And they were the critters were neat.
Yeah, they were neat.
So they have to be mentioned in my top 50 80s.
How about the kill effects? Because
they just stick you in whatever.
Right. It left something to be desired for me on that aspect.
Probably.
The creature design was a little goofy. I mean, it was like Gremlins on acid or something, on rabies. Did it come out after Gremlins Critters? I feel like it did.
Yeah, they were both being made at the same time. Yeah. They were a year apart at the most. A critter did eat a E.T. doll in the movie.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
So it was after E.T.
It was definitely a statement on those cutesy alien movies that were out there. Yeah, so that you got to forgive the idiocy of it all. The little bitty things roll. Did they even roll around in the first one?
Yeah.
Okay, they rolled around.
Dust flying, and they would shoot little things at you, and they were coming, and they were good.
Awesome.
And they were fun.
Critters did not make my list.
Oh. I can see my list is more of a historian's point of view on the 80s. And
that's true.
I want to. It's like if an alien came down and I had to show him 50 horror movies
from the 80s.
Right. I wouldn't want to show him 6 Friday the 13th because, I mean, I would eventually, but if I only had 50.
Right.
There would be some double features, though.
Yeah. Okay. That was number 47 for you.
Si, senor.
Critters, which didn't make my list. Number 47 for me is Stephen King's Cujo.
Cujo.
Did Cujo make your list?
No, it did not.
Okay, so finally,
another annoying kid.
Yeah. Cujo for me worked on a lot of levels. I liked the fact that they were isolated, stuck there, and there were a lot of times in the movie when I felt like the actions that they were taking were justified. Usually in movies like this, there's a chance to do something and they just don't do it, or they do something absolutely stupid like run upstairs when they can go outside and get in a whatever, car, drive away or whatever, So I felt like Cujo kept me in suspense because of that, and that I felt like the characters were slightly weak, so that doesn't help it. The kills were okay, but there was the carnage after. But I have an issue with huge dogs. I have an issue with any animal that's big enough to take me down. Okay, because no matter how nice they are, Sigmund and what's his name, the magicians and the tiger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Freud. Sigmund and Freud. No, Roy. Anyway, whatever their names are.
Hansel and Gretel.
Just screw that. If it's big enough to put my head in its mouth, I don't want to be around it. And the cute Saint Bernard, and we're New Orleans Saints fans. And
Gumbo.
For a while there, Gumbo was our mascot, and I think that's hilarious because the Saint Bernards usually go out to help you. So that's what the Saints were there for a little while, to let you guys steamroll over us and get your shit. And
the characters in Cujo weren't likable, none of them. And you had cheating bastards to the left, and piece of shit rednecks to the right. And we finally get introduced to the cop, and it's like, oh, we might get there, and and he dies.
Yeah.
And it was like, damn, we didn't get a chance to see if he was the one likable person. Because I didn't even care for the husband too much either. No. He didn't really do anything wrong.
No, but I didn't like him either. Yeah. Yeah, you're right about all of that. But that movie came out at a time when I was a kid, and dogs are scary, and horror movies was my gig at that time. Maximum Overdrive didn't do it for me, but Cujo did it for me.
You can get that St. Bernard, just
right.
hold him up and dance with him, and it looks like he's...
That was number 47 for me, Cujo. And I think the next one on my list you're not going to have on your list either. So let's go to number 46 for you.
46. Is it a horror movie or is it not? Parents. Randy Quaid.
Mm-hmm. Was that Mary Beth Hurt?
Mary Beth Hurt. And some wide-eyed little boy who didn't annoy me. Child actor. Who's been in nothing since. This movie really looked like it was taking place in the 50s, but I think they were just living in a 50s kind of world.
Right.
I don't know. It's a horror movie. It's a comedy.
Mm-hmm. It's a black comedy, but it's definitely a horror movie.
Yeah.
It's a psychological horror movie if you follow the lead character, the kid.
He's pretty much a vegetarian. He doesn't like to eat. They feed him leftovers, and he would like to know what they were before they were leftovers. To which the dad replied, leftovers to be. And you'll have to seek the movie out yourself. Randy Quaid. It's not near one of his great performances.
Do you know who directed it?
Bob Balaban.
Bob Balaban. So it is directed by a comedic icon who
genius
and who made a film who, in my opinion, resembles David Lynch a lot. And it's got this
Christopher
touch
of do David Lynch.
It's got this touch of Peter Jackson in it, just enough with the I don't know. It was just a morbid romanticism. I mean, the parents do very odd things, and it's a wild imagery there. Wow, parents. If I'm not mistaken, Angelo Badalamenti might have done a song for the soundtrack. I could be wrong, though. Trying to find those David Lynch connections. You actually don't get a lot of them in horror movies.
If you take a black cat and you skin it, and you boil the bones, and you drink the water, you'll become invisible. The little boy said that in the movie.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird movie.
But we don't want to do that, do we now, children?
I actually have parents rated a little bit higher.
Good to see it's on your list.
My number 46 is John Carpenter's Christine, based on the novel.
Back-to-back Stephen King.
Based on a novel by Stephen King. So I've got two Stephen Kings in a row. And my first John Carpenter, who is a horror master. And
yes, he is.
Like most directors, they'll come out with a few that are duds. I see that a lot. You know, there's a lot of Clive Barker movies I don't like. There's a lot of David Cronenberg I don't like.
Ghosts of Mars, anybody?
Yeah, and John Carpenter's Ghost of Mars was one of the worst movies I ever saw. But Memoirs of an Invisible Man was a fucking awesome movie. And it wasn't horror at all. So I'm a fan of John Carpenter. Even Vampires I thought was good.
Mahogany.
Come on, man. James Woods and Cheryl Lee. What the fuck could go wrong with that? Come on. Just gotta go with it. Anyway, what am I talking about? Christine. Christine was another one of those films that came out and it satisfied a need in me to have a good horror movie, and it was there. And
Christine,
the strange kid,
Christine,
could annoy people, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's why I didn't make my list. 2 words, Keith Carradine.
And I knew you didn't have this movie on your list. And you know,
but Carradine Stanton.
Yeah. How many good kills can you have of Twin Peaks: The Return fame? How many good kills can you have when it's a car running people over and stuff? But the combination of Stephen King and John Carpenter, it's too good for me to pass up. I can only imagine how bad this movie would be if the powers that be would decide to remake it, like let's say Michael Bay or the Weinsteins or whatever. I mean, can you imagine Christine, a remake? It's like a Tesla or something. I don't fucking know. Okay, so that's it. That's my number 46.
I read From a Buick 9 to More Cars.
So kudos to John Carpenter. First one of his on my list. What do you have for your number 45?
45. I'm going to move this down to here.
You're making changes to your ultimate list?
It's a three place change. This one at 42 needed to be lower, and I am eyeballing it because I didn't drop it. So it's only going from 42 to 45. My number 45 is Stephen King's The Dead Zone, directed by David Cronenberg. Dead Zone's not a horror movie, and originally wasn't on my list, but I took Twilight Zone, the movie, off my list. So I had to insert, and upon us talking about how certain movies keep popping up on certain lists, Dead Zone keeps popping up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's squeaked in.
Yeah, Dead Zone is on my list as well.
And then climb my list a little bit.
As far as Cronenberg goes, almost every movie he does can be considered horror, just on that other level, not just pure slasher.
Let's make love to the radiator.
Yeah, some things come in perfect, like The Fly, where it's a monster movie and it's going to be body horror and fucking gore and mangling and shit. But Cronenberg doesn't do that with every movie, but it's pretty morbid and grotesque.
I had 2 Cronenbergs back to back. That's why I moved it down to.
Oh,
just get it away.
Well, The Dead Zone has that one killer going around, ends up being the cop and the scissors and all that. And I remember that picture being in Fangoria and thinking, oh, cool.
And it's got an evil monster dictator of an oligarch president. Wannabe president.
Yeah, wannabe senator or something, yeah. Martin Sheen. And the great Christopher Walken.
The ice is gonna break! I can't do Christopher Walken. I don't even know why I tried.
No, me either. I can't do it.
We can't get that loud. It's late.
More cowbell.
More.
So, The Dead Zone. Good one.
45.
Number 45. It's on my list. It's a little higher up.
I ain't got much to say about it. Read the book. That's what I got to say about it.
Yeah, the book's pretty fucking good. Cronenberg does a good job. Number 45 for me is also based on a book written by Whitley Strieber. And that book is named Wolfen.
The Wolfen. Oh, just Wolfen.
No, The Wolfen.
Wolfen.
But the movie's called Wolfen.
Wolfen.
Starring Albert Finney, Gregory Hines. And this starts off as like a director crime thriller, but it soon turns into we're dealing with monsters here, and then you're not quite sure what the hell's going on by the end of it. I like the final scene where the wolves bite the head off, and I always thought that effect was good. I always look for good effects in a movie. And I thought it was an interesting movie, and it kept my attention for majority of it. It felt more like a crime drama, but I love that when you're finding the evidence and putting the pieces together and realize, yeah, this ain't no dog. It's a wolf or whatever.
And was it Tom Noonan, his character, or Gregory Hines, one of them, talking about how a severed head could continue to live? So you get the big payoff at the end when the head gets severed and he's there. Oh,
yeah, he's there. Yeah, and it's fucking
fucked us up.
Yeah,
fucked me up. I was like, God damn it, that is true.
Right.
Fuck me, I don't want to see me.
We talked about that for a couple of years after that. Where, yeah, can you imagine if you get your head cut off and then you're looking at your headless body and that's the last thing you remember before you die?
Yeah.
So, Wolfen, a good movie, interesting movie.
It's actually higher on my list.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was too much of a drama to even be included.
It is, but it was really scary.
I liked it. And they used real wolves at the end, which was, I was kind of really wanting a werewolf there at the end to have real wolves. Kind of was a letdown for me back then.
Yeah,
But
it was a letdown, but it was a ride the whole way. And it's usually that at that age when that movie came out would be just boring as all hell. And no, I watched it every time it came on.
yeah, we watched it every time. It was directed well, the point of view from the monster and everything. And
The most work Gregory Hines got since History of the World Part 1.
White Knights.
That's it.
All right, so that was my 45. Wolfen.
Wolfen.
What is your 44?
44. Omen 3, The Final Conflict. Omen 3. The first two Omens came out in the 70s, so they couldn't be included. But then we got Omen 3. And it's more of a historical approach. I have to mention one of these movies. It is the Antichrist. They do die in very strange ways. Everyone that tries to come and kill him with a knife. And just, the kills are, it's like Final Destination for our generation.
Mm-hmm.
Final Destination for our generation.
That was a great movie.
That guy flying around, hanging upside down, and then he gets on fire. And then what's worse is he crashes into plastic, so all the plastic melts around him. And he's on fire. Well, he couldn't, I forget the series of events, but once he had burning plastic, you're on fire, you can't breathe, and you've got melted plastic on you.
It was morbid.
And you're hanging upside down. And the killer is sitting right there, like on video. Alibi.
Yeah. I was just sitting here. I didn't do anything.
I didn't do it. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Sam Neill. His feature starring performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember him in much before that. That put him on the map for me.
In America.
Yeah, that movie's higher up on my list, actually. I like The Final Conflict. Where are we at?
We'll be flying through these once we start coming up on the ones that we already mentioned.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Number 44 for me is another one that teetered on whether it's horror or not. Dreamscape.
That teetered off my totem pole. It's not on my list.
It's not on your list.
Because I didn't consider it horror.
Right. Well, when you got into the dream scenarios, they were horror scenes. And it felt a lot more like a Twilight Zone or something like that at times. But it did leave an impression with the great David Patrick Kelly of Twin Peaks fame. And Twin Peaks The Return fame. And The Warriors, right? People love them.
Warriors.
Well, I identified David Patrick Kelly with Dreamscape after Twin Peaks because that was a memorable performance. He played a great bad guy.
Dick.
And Dennis Quaid was the lead. And you also had Spielberg's wife, Kate Capshaw. And
Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
And George Wendt again.
That's right. That's right. And you had that really famous actor playing the president, the one he was trying to save the whole time.
Oh, Buddy Epson. Or Buddy Albert. Or Albert.
No, Buddy Albert. That's
Buddy
right.
Albert.
I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a great movie. I liked it a lot. I thought that the dream sequences were scary. And the whole messing with dreams, which is a lot like Nightmare on Elm Street, which kind of gave it the horror thing was enough for me to put it on the list at number 44. So what is your number 43?
I would like to see David Cronenberg do Dreamscape. How many body horror scenes? How many times does he go in and wakes her up in a dream?
The erotica of all the dream sequences. That would be amazing.
Steven Spielberg would be sitting there with popcorn, watching his wife. Well, what number are we on?
We're going to number 43.
43. Oh, yes. Psycho 2.
Yes. Norman Bates is back.
And never had a chance because Psycho was Psycho. And you're just not supposed to do a sequel.
Yeah, but this was awesome because if Anthony Perkins is going to reprise his role as Norman Bates, in my opinion, it was the greatest casting of all time in the history of film. To put Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates and what he did in that movie is so iconic. It's kind of like Hannibal for me, where I don't see how you can go wrong if you can have your lead be Anthony Hopkins reprising his great role that he did. And I felt the same way about Psycho 2. It's Norman Bates. It's really him. That's felt like a real 25 years later. It really did. After 25 years, Norman Bates has come home.
They bugged him up. He tried.
Yeah, he was trying real hard.
And slashers were in. I get it. Slasher movies were in, so this is a slasher-y version of Psycho.
Right.
It had a really good backstory. Tolerable acting.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Perkins was brilliant. And
I thought the special effects were better than most of the films in the 80s, horror slasher films. I thought that's one of the reasons I really like Psycho 2.
Yeah. And the payoff at the end was great. Smacked her over the head with a shovel. We won't get into spoilers, but if you avoided it because it's Psycho 2, go and watch it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a watch.
Anthony Perkins didn't get to do too many other movies, even though he did 3 and 4. And even though you could probably skip 3, I would suggest watching 4.
Yeah, I thought 3 was okay and 4 was pretty good. But 2 was definitely the best of the sequels.
Yeah.
With Robert Loggia of Lost Highway fame.
And peekers all over the place.
We're always going to do that. We didn't have a peeker in Parents.
Damn.
That is my number 43. Parents.
Ah.
By Bob Balaban.
Sure.
And it is a deep, morbid, artistic venture into horrors of being a child and not wanting to eat leftovers.
And he would take his light off and then have to run and jump into bed, afraid of what might be underneath his bed. Bob Balaban, the way he directed it, he's kind of under the, kind of laying on the floor, watching him in slow motion run and jump into the bed.
It really is an artistic expression. It's a different kind of horror movie, and yeah, I think it's because of Bob Balaban.
He jumps into the bed one time and starts swimming, and all of a sudden he's on a blanket with blood all over him and starts drowning in it. Dinner! Time for dinner!
Gross. They put the leftovers in front of him. Yuck. So that's my number 43. What's your number 42 as we get this list going?
42. Oh, that's where we're at. Okay, Videodrome, David Cronenberg, James Woods. James Woods is top 5 all-time favorite actors for me. When you look at the period of time and who was my favorite actor during that period of time, James Woods kind of grabbed a hold of it for a while.
Deborah Harry, right?
She burnt her titty with a cigarette. Lots of body horror. Not a horrific story, just a strange little sci-fi tale.
Like I say with Cronenberg, everything he does can be considered horror to some degree.
Yeah, strange movie. I ain't got that much to say about it.
Videodrome didn't make my list.
It got as high as it did because it is a very well-made movie.
Yeah, it is a good movie.
I like James Woods.
40.
Don't know if I like this character or not. Don't know if I like anybody in the movie. Like, there were no... That goes a long way when you have likable characters. And I know James Woods can play likable characters. even though it's probably hard.
Like Immediate Family. I've been in a lot of movies.
Bestseller.
Citizen Cohen was just brilliant performance.
He was so likable in True Believers.
He was.
He was.
He didn't get his shit together till he finally smoked that joint. Number 42 on my list is the remake of Cat People.
Putting out the fire with gasoline.
Sung by
David
Bowie of Twin Peaks fame.
Oh, man. Twin Peaks all over the place.
Yeah, well, this stars that. This stars a bunch of people whose names I don't remember. Malcolm McDowell was
Natasha Kinski.
and Natasha Kinski.
And John Hurd.
John Hurd, that's his name. That's right. And the redhead.
Annette O'Toole.
Annette O'Toole. Ooh.
And Ed Begley Jr.
Mhm. Gets his arm ripped off.
It was filmed in the Audubon Zoo
Here in good old Louisiana.
Louisiana.
You know, and I do love that movie. I didn't see the original, and that's a perfect when you see a remake before the original. You're always going to respect the original, but I actually like the remake. It had a lot of nudity in it and horror thrills, payoff, and yeah, I like Cat People. I had to give it recognition because that was one of those that set itself apart for me. And I bet a lot of it had to do with the fact that it was filmed down here in Louisiana in such a recognizable area. I mean, the majority of the film takes place at the zoo.
Yeah. And Natasha Kinski was married to Quincy Jones, who used to be married to Peggy Limpton of Twin Peaks fame.
Wow! Glad we did that. Okay, what's your number 41?
Demons. The only Italian splatter movie that made my list. That was in the 80s.
Yeah, none of them made my list.
It's up. It's high. I have it really high.
It's a really good movie.
It didn't let me down, and it opened the door for me searching for all the other lost movies. Where I realized that back in the 70s they were doing Tom Savini style effects that we just weren't seeing here in America.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized after the fact, after I fell in love with Tom Savini and 80s slasher, that there was some good gory stuff that I had missed. And Demons opened the door to it. And it's a great premise. You go to the movies, watch a movie about zombies, and then you turn into zombies, and then the whole theater is full of zombies.
The second one was pretty good too, wasn't it? In an apartment building or something.
I don't know, but that's one. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it again because that's available right now.
They were coming out of TVs from multiple apartments and stuff.
That could be. That's why I want to watch it again because I remember it being the same premise, like
Right.
being in a theater and it started there. Maybe it bled out into the streets.
I enjoyed the special effects much more than the premise of the film. I thought that the Italian horror films paid off in the gore. A lot of times it was unrealistic looking gore at times in these movies.
Yeah.
And sometimes that bothered me. I was kind of wanting to go for something that looked more real. Tom Savini was an expert at that, having photographed war in Vietnam and stuff.
And those
Wherever.
they're movies you really can't. You don't know who's going to survive either. So there's always something refreshing watching a Bava or a Argento. Shit ain't going to go the way you would normally connect the dots. I couldn't even tell you who survived that movie. Most of the time, everyone dies at the end. No, but it's nice when you follow somebody for 15 minutes and then they get killed. I mean, Wes Craven didn't do that with Drew Barrymore first. You watch some of these Argento movies and it's like all of a sudden you're following this guy around and then he just gets hit by a bus. And it was like, okay, it was horrific, but that had nothing to do with anything.
Okay, my number 41, speaking of Wes Craven, is one of his less horror film type films, but still one of my favorites, and it worked on levels for me as horror, so I'm putting it on my list at number 41. It's The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Scream again.
Once again, I am a fan of psychological horror, and those kind of things work on a level for me that is more effective at times than the being scared of a doll.
Starring Bill Pullman of
Lost Highway fame.
All night long.
All night long. Serpent and the Rainbow is great. The whole being buried alive and stuff, and the whole zombie reasons for actual zombies being alive, and yeah, I liked it. It was cool, and being from Louisiana, that voodoo shit is real, so it worked. And like I said,
It'll work again.
Wes Craven, we call it gris down here, Shaq, me. So Wes Craven works sometimes.
Every 10 years we gotta wait.
At 43 years, you said? I hope I didn't jinx this.
Oh.
Wes Craven works at times for me, and sometimes he doesn't, and this time it worked very well for me. That's my number 41, The Serpent and the Rainbow. Number 40, for you.
Beyond the serpent and the rainbow. Number 40, Halloween Gear. The original sequel to the 70s classic Halloween takes place right after. Just splice that shit on a VHS and watch them back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And when it ends, it ends. And that's the end.
That's the end. Michael burn up. He's dead.
It's time, Michael.
Fini.
Time. Boy, well, we didn't know he was prophetic.
Yeah. Yeah. His fucking ass is like,
it's time, Michael. No, seriously, don't go out there and make 8 more fucking sequels. We shot you in both eyes. Yet he's going to come after her again.
yeah, and see where he's going.
It was fine for me. They had some cool kills.
Mm-hmm.
They had some, best screams. I hate screaming in movies, and Jamie screams just enough once.
Yeah. Yep.
She doesn't scream her head off when she's down in the basement because no one's going to hear her scream down in the basement. If she's screaming, she's exerting energy and moving. And that's what she's doing. She's not screaming for the sake of screaming, Rob.
So the director did a good job. I often thought Michael drowning the woman in the hot tub, burning her face, and his hand being perfectly fine was a setback. It was a hang-up for me, and still is to this day.
And back then, I thought that if you had a part of your brain circuit snap that you believed you couldn't die, then you couldn't.
Right.
Like, that's why he kept coming back as a human, which is a scary thought in and of itself that he was that crazy.
Right.
So
if he didn't suffer organ failure, he would keep coming.
He would keep coming. So I assumed it never even fazed him that he was burning his hand.
But it was a good slasher movie. It
Yeah.
was a good 80s. That's the way you do a horror slasher movie.
Story was stupid. Sam Hain, all that, stupid. But it satisfied a need.
Slightly higher up on my list. Not because it's such a great movie, but because it's got a rewatchability. Like you said, you splice it right after the first one. Even though Carpenter didn't direct it, the guy tried to keep a mood, and Jamie Lee's sort of the same age, and it all works. Number 40 for me is my next entry from John Carpenter, Prince of Darkness.
Ooh.
Way low on the list at number 40 for some people. But Prince of Darkness was a good movie. It was a horror movie, and it was scary. It worked on a religious theme and a science theme, and it came at you with different creepiness, whether it's that silhouette in the field or the alley. Carpenter's good at that shit.
Carpenter's cast of characters, too. Everybody was in this movie.
Yeah, that whole cast, and they all had a personality, and I actually liked most of them, which is rare for that ensemble. where one after the other they get picked off. I kind of thought the entity, the demon, the whatever itself was kind of goofy. I don't believe in this existential evil that exists that can, I mean, I guess I'm just not that religious, but
It was Donald Pleasance.
if it was the devil or something, incarnate or something like that, an actual fallen angel, it might have worked better. But
I think it was.
yeah, I think that's what they were trying to, and they were trying to make it more scientific too. So, anyway, really creepy. The whole bugs and everything else, and the shit shooting out of their mouth, and the fact that you really liked the characters, you didn't know which one was going to die next, and so good job. Most people have this film way higher than I do.
I do.
For me, it's at number 40. So where are you at number 39?
Number 39. John Carpenter rears his ugly head for the first time on my list today. In the Mouth of Madness.
That was the 80s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, now you got me worried. I think it was 89.
Yeah, probably so.
Where's the book?
I'm going to pause this for a second. We're going to check this out. So we just realized this is not a 1980s movie.
Whoops.
And it wasn't on my list. But you had a number where you had two movies that were in a tie.
Yeah, I had one number, just a couple of spots up, that I had two movies tied. So I'm going to separate those movies.
Cool. And so now we have an actual replacement.
We have a replacement that I didn't have to go digging and searching.
So for your new number 39.
Day of the Dead.
Wow.
George Romero. Tom Savini's zombie opus.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess you kind of figure what I had it mixed with. But it's dark. It's very dark. Not a lot of humor in this one. Not a lot of characters you really cared about. Except the zombie Bud.
Yeah.
Cared about. Or Bub. Bud or Bub.
Bub, yeah. He was the main antagonist was an asshole and just couldn't wait for him to die, and it pays off at the end.
Is he?
Day of the Dead's a little higher up for me on my list. And technically it was for you too.
Yeah, because it's I was bunching it with another movie that I have higher up.
Right. And
so it does fall a few spots, and rightfully so. But the effects alone are worth.
It's true, that movie, Day of the Dead, lacks some in the story compared to the predecessors.
It's so dark. You'd probably have a really bad acid trip if you ate acid.
And watched that.
Dawn of the Dead, not so much.
Shit.
Day of the Dead, yeah, it would be like.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead seemed like fun. Capitalistic heaven. You have the run of the mall.
Yeah, we're going to get to that one sooner or later. But this is Tom Savini's second greatest special effects ever.
Yeah, great effects in this.
We'll have to do a Tom Savini top 5 one day. But
so that was number 39.
39.
Number 39 for me is the original The Hitcher. Now, The Hitcher is kind of like a drama. Not a lot of horror in it, but a thriller. The maniac in it, portrayed expertly by Rutger Hauer.
Time to Die.
Makes this a horror movie without a doubt. C. Thomas Howell, riding the fame of the 80s that he had. I thought he did a great job. And of course, the girl we did not want to see die, Jennifer Jason Leigh
of
Twin Peaks: The Return fame. And the way she died was just horrific, and and the whole finger in the fries and everything. It all worked great for me. It all had the little touches that I wanted in a horror movie. And the remake sucked.
It didn't make my list.
Damn, my 39 did not make your list. Okay.
It was close.
So what do you have for number 38?
Yeah. Number 38. H.P. Lovecraft's From Beyond.
Ooh.
Directed by Stuart Gordon and produced by Brian Yunta.
That's right.
Starring Jeffrey Combs, Barbara Crampton, and Ken Foree.
And these are classic names in horror lore, but mainly because of...
None of them made David Lynch.
That's true.
None of them were in David Lynch.
Well, Barbara Crampton was in the last season of Channel Zero, which is produced and written by Harley Payton.
There we go.
Okay, so there's a connection there.
That was a movie that we rented from time to time. You couldn't pass the box on the wall at Blockbuster without grabbing it.
Oh yeah, that was a good movie. It was gross. Felt like something.
Are such easy prey.
Felt like something Cronenberg would have really sunk his teeth into. I think Stuart Gordon did a good job.
Putty again. You just run your fingers.
The special effects were just morbidly grotesque. You know, some of it worked, some of it didn't. A lot of the computer graphics, it didn't work so well back then in the 80s, but it works. I think it works, especially from, you know, the iconic lead like Jeffrey Combs and the beautiful Barbara Crampton.
That's all I'm gonna say about that.
So From Beyond, great pick.
From Beyond.
That's a little higher up on my list. At number 38, I have the aforementioned Psycho 2.
Psycho 2.
So that's my number 38. And it's a strong film, like I said, because of Anthony Perkins and the special effects. I think it makes a great sequel. I love that it took place 25 years after the first movie and retained the great Anthony Perkins playing this great character. And, yep. Great movie. Okay, we're not going to talk anymore about Psycho 2. It is higher on my list than you. What is your number 37?
Number 37. Night of the Creeps.
Oh, yeah.
Bullwinkle Moose. Thrill me.
Tom Atkins. Greatest performance from Tom Atkins, and he's been in all kind of great, iconic 80s horror.
And the Forgotten Lively sibling.
That's right. Related to Robin Lively, who was in Twin Peaks.
There you go. Oh, Night of the Creeps. There's Tom Atkins double feature every Halloween that I'm not working. And it's Tom Atkins double feature. Night of the Creeps. The first one. The other one will be coming up later in the list.
Oh, I see.
That's all we gotta say about that. Night of the Creeps.
Yeah, Night of the Creeps is a great monsters movie, great homage to 50s horror, and it works so well as a comedy. I don't think the situations are comedic. I think that the characters are so likable, and that it's so well written that they're funny. That makes a difference. Tom Atkins is just brilliant, and the nerd from Vacation 2, the Lively sibling,
Thrill me.
He does a good job. His little sidekick with the crutches is great. The love interest, likes him and comes along with him at the end, and they end up hooking up, and it's almost believable. That usually never happens.
Yeah.
Like the end of Revenge of the Nerds. I didn't buy that shit.
Or Career Opportunities.
So that was number 37 for you.
Hey.
It's way higher up on my list. Number 37 for me is John Carpenter once again with The Fog.
The Fog.
The original The Fog, not that Superman horse shit. The original The Fog, which was really creepy, and it was a horror movie. It was scary.
Not that Smallville horse shit.
The film debut of
Adrienne
Barbeau. That was right before she did Wes Craven's Swamp Thing.
She was doing John Carpenter at the time.
With Ray Wise of Twin Peaks fame. But, yeah. So there we go. I'm not going to talk much about The Fog. I think it's a classic. I think it's a great representation of 80s horror. Jamie Lee Curtis, of course. Tom Atkins, right? Once again. Is it
Tom Atkins and Jamie Lee.
And Hal Halbrook.
Yes.
And Adrian Barbeau and Hal Halbrook was in Creepshow together, so that they would do that reunion. And you also had
Nancy Loomis.
right, which is Psycho.
No, that's Janet Leigh.
Janet Leigh, she was in it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that. Yeah,
Janet Leigh and Nancy Loomis were in a car together. They end up at church at the end together. And then you get the whole Halloween world circle complete.
right. Some of the horror was kind of goofy. Whether it was ghost or whether it was actual beings or whatever, and and then you had the whole cross glowing and shit, and I don't know. Some of that's goofy, but it works. It's definitely one that has to be watched.
It is creepy.
If you're going to invest in 80s horror movies. So The Fog has to be on your list, huh?
Yeah, it's higher up.
Okay, so
But they do have a cameo from the guy that played Jimmy Olsen in the original Superman movie. That did not give you the green light to make that Smallville horse shit of a sequel.
I forgot he was in it. So that's my number 37, The Fog. What is your number 36?
36. Wes Craven rears his ugly head. The people under the stars. Scared? You are?
This is not on my list
Kill them!
because I didn't consider it a horror movie.
Yep.
But it does classify as a horror movie.
You'll find it in the horror section. Wes Craven's a horror director. They look like zombies to me, but what could you do?
Yep.
And they had two peekers in this. Everett McGill and Wendy Roby.
Ow! Ed Nadine.
Ed and Nadine Hurley running around in leather and pigtails.
It was a brilliant movie.
And Rottweilers and shotguns and
The Ving Rhames.
and fool.
It was a weird ending how they all just kind of wandered out into the public. And everyone was just accepting of them.
Yeah. Welcome to the neighborhood.
You guys need some sun.
They're not worried about grabbing the money.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that movie. It's just not on my list because I didn't tweak it as a horror movie enough to put it on the list. But it is Wes Craven. Great pick. Number 36 for me is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins once again. This was very much in the style of John Carpenter, and even though it didn't have Michael Myers, I liked the movie so much that in the end I was like, that fucking sucks. Didn't have Michael Myers. That wasn't a Halloween movie, but it was still pretty good, and I wanted to see it again because the special effects were really good, and the story moved along good enough for me where I didn't get too aggravated. And it also had
Dan O'Harely.
from Twin Peaks fame. Ow!
Extreme.
So yeah, good movie. I'm sure that's on your list, right? Did you mention it already?
Mm-mm. It's higher up.
It's higher up on your list. Number 36 for me is Halloween 3. Number 35.
Oh, I got one of those movies you don't have that everyone puts on theirs, and I mention it because it's a great movie. Gremlins. It satisfied the prosthetic need that I had for special effects, and a couple of blown up gremlins in the microwave, and yeah, but it's this low on the list because it's not a horror movie. It's not.
Yeah.
But I would show the aliens Gremlins. Probably not. I'd show them some of the ones I just mentioned before first. That's where it gets confusing. Where do you put these movies on your list? It's almost like a Spielberg movie.
Yeah, Joe Dante is the kind of director that does stuff that it's like John Landis. He's capable of doing comedy. He's capable of doing horror. Joe Dante has a lot of stuff like that. I think he did the Howling.
Yeah.
Right, which is full blown horror. So there was definitely a horror aspect of Gremlins, without a doubt. And it had Phoebe Cates in it, which was fine by me.
Yeah. I can remember now, this was the age of time where like a 3-year span where there wasn't a male lead worth a flip.
Mm-hmm.
And we would get these William Ragsdales and Fright Night and Charlie Brewsters and frickin', it's like, if you just had, Weird Science. Come on, you got Anthony Michael Hall, and then you got this someone named unknown that you've never seen before or after, and he sucked the whole time. Anyway, I'm not going to... the guy did a good job in Gremlins. And you got Corey Feldman sitting right there. I guess they didn't know what they had at the time.
Right.
They would have rewritten the script.
And of course, the old guy. Miller.
Oh,
Dick Miller. Classic horror icon, character actor. Gremlins didn't make my list because I didn't consider it horror enough.
And that's why it's so low on mine.
Number 35 for me is the aforementioned The Dead Zone, written by Stephen King, directed by David Cronenberg. Another movie that may not be considered horror to some, but it made it on most of these other people's lists. And yeah, The Dead Zone works for me. It's a good one. I like it. And we're going to go on to number 34.
34. Stephen King. Pet Cemetery.
Oh.
One of the scariest novels ever written.
Yeah.
I actually read the book way after I saw the movie, and it creeped me out. It creeped me out. It's just creepy. You don't want to get involved. You don't want to get into that guy's head where he's at when he decides to do all the things he does, like bring his child back, his wife back, his neighbor back, and
the cat.
And the cat back.
Yeah, that
Winston Churchill.
That movie works as a horror movie. It's a pretty good one. I thought the sick sister was the scariest part.
And when he wakes up and the camera just cuts and the dead boy's over his bed. Doc, we have to go. That's all. No music, no nothing. Doc. Everyone in the theater went, ah!
Right.
He is there. Yeah.
There's a remake coming out, of course. Hollywood's got to regurgitate these 80s movies.
Sometimes dead is better with John Lithgow.
I think it'll be all right, I guess. We'll see.
We'll see. I have to read the book again to see if it's closer to the book, to know the differences and what they did and what was in it, because it was a while since I read the book.
Yeah.
I'm fine with this movie. Once again, a lead actor, you could have gotten anybody else.
That's right.
I was I guess, just all right with the wife. What you going to do with the other ones?
So it's a little higher up on my list. Number 34 on my list is Hellraiser.
Didn't make my list.
Directed by
Clive Barker. Louisiana boy right there.
Now, Hellraiser didn't make your list, but in most people's 80s horror lists, it's way higher up than this.
It was teetering on my list.
Number 34, it felt, it had that sexuality to it, so it had a Cronenberg kind of feel to it, and a lot of different gore scenes, which, just give me a hook and some flesh, and that sells.
The nail on his hand.
Oh, gross. And being a kid, I didn't quite understand what was all going on the first time I saw it, so it kind of grows on you. But it is a movie that I don't tend to want to watch. I don't put it on all the time.
Really great acting, but hard to look at people. Like, I wish it was Everett McGill instead of the guy that we had. The woman that was, she plays it off good. I mean, she ends up going and hooking and bringing guys back to the house, and she looks like an older woman.
Yeah, she felt like a Blue Velvet kind of character.
I would have just completely recast it with the same money spent, and But they were all really good. They were just hard to look at before, during, and after.
But an original story and good gore. So that's my number 34. What you got for number 33?
Yeah, so close. Dawn of the Dead. That's where it was.
All right.
Dawn of the Dead. I like that one a lot better. It was funnier. And the way they all kind of got together, the way they banded together but weren't together, but it wasn't the annoying, we're going to fight with each other the whole time to make the time pass because we only got so many special effects to show. No, they were all doing exactly what I would think we would all be doing with strangers and with how you get to trust somebody, what they do for you to see that they're trustworthy. And yeah, the characters. I really enjoyed all the characters.
Yeah, that makes a difference. It did not make my list.
Damn.
Day of the Dead actually made my list. Dawn of the Dead didn't, but it is a great movie. It was in my top 60.
Oh.
So it's there. And I do agree with you on everything that you said, but the special effects in Day of the Dead won me over in the end.
It does trump.
So that's your number 33. My number 33 is a movie we already mentioned, Halloween Part 2. A good, nice slasher movie. I had to give it some recognition, put it up here. It's a little higher than Part 3 because it is Michael Myers. And it is the final time we should ever have had Michael Myers.
Yes.
That's my number 33. What's your number 32?
Number 32, the aforementioned House. Look how high up House is for me.
Wow.
House is a fun movie. And when it came out, no one ever seen it. Like, so any friend I ever had with me going through the horror section was like, you never seen House?
Mm-hmm.
And you end up watching it 50 times.
Just a hand ringing the doorbell.
Oh, it looks cool.
Yeah, it existed on another level besides just a horror movie. It was fun.
Believe it or not. A lot of similarities to Evil Dead, you know, with trophies on the wall coming alive and tools flying at you. He used the tools to kill the creature that he had locked. He locked all the tools were flying at him. He shut the door. Then later on, the monster's chasing him, and he opens the door, and the tools come out and kill the monster. And he's like, yes! And I was like, okay, that was new. That was neat. That was cool.
Yeah.
And the neighbor, you know, it's like, come see. You've got to see this. Instead of just playing on him being crazy the whole movie, they bring the neighbor in pretty damn quick, and the neighbor gets an eyeful and sees, okay, he's not crazy. I'm crazy for being here. I'm out. We already talked about House.
So my number 32 is a movie you probably have a lot higher. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2.
Part 2.
Number 32 on my list. And Tom Savini, right?
Tom Savini.
Dennis Hopper of Blue Velvet fame.
Oh.
And it works really good as a horror movie with a lot of comedy, a lot of action elements and characters, and you know, it's just the old family back together again. It felt pretty seamless. I had to go back and watch the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre just to notice the difference in the actors that were playing the different characters. It really felt like they carried the mantle pretty good.
I done told you boys not to call me on this one.
I really like that movie. We'll get to talking about it more when we get it to where it's at on your list, because you really enjoy that one.
Way high.
The special effects are good. What is your number 31?
31. Altered States. William Hurt. Right out of the gate. And I had a best friend that nobody really liked. And I sometimes I was asking myself, why do I hang out with this guy? It's because he reminds me of William Hurt in Altered States. He's like Jeff Goldblum, scientisty guy, plays the same guy. It's going to overanalyze everything. and continue talking about it long after you've left the room. And that's chaos. Just mind fuck. If you weren't tripping, you will be by the time he's done talking. And if you were tripping, you'll be sober by the time he's done talking. He alters your state. Yeah. Just listen to everything they're talking about in it. He was traveling the world and trying these different hallucinogens and stuff that that you could probably make it in your home. In your everyday kitchen sink.
Oh my God.
And sleep deprivation, or the deprivation chamber, which you float in water and they close it, complete darkness, and
Right.
the animal instincts start coming out of them. Trying to tap into that hidden strength that all humans have.
Good one. That's your number 31. My number 31 is From Beyond.
From Beyond.
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 It's a good one. I really like it. It's funny. It's gory. It's weird. It's over-sexualized. And it's fully realized. From Beyond.
Beyond.
That's my number 31. What's your number 30?
All right. The Fog. We're just stomping all over each other's scares now. The Fog. I have it higher on my list because I was just at that age, and it is what the doctor ordered. A good movie with kills in it. So you had some nice little kills. But all in all, it wasn't that bloody. Like John Carpenter, not a bloody, but effective. Very effective. Very effective scares.
Yeah. Carpenter's direction has a lot to do with that.
And non-annoying characters.
Right, for the most part. And not a lot of actions by the characters that you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis getting funky with that older guy was kind of weird to me. When I was young, I'm like, what are you doing? You're a child, don't do this. But
once I got his age, I knew. Oh, that's what you was doing.
My number 30 is a repeat, The Final Conflict.
Damn.
Omen Part 3. That one was great. Great kills. Scary because it existed on that real life level. Religious belief and all that. And the ending was just so goofy. Like, Jesus, why didn't you show up before? You just wait until everyone's dead and then show up.
The Nazarene.
But I give it a high ranking at 30 because it is an effective movie for me. I never forget the kills in it. And the original Omen works on that level too. It's like, these are accidents that could actually happen, All right, what's your number 29?
Pause that real quick. You can see what all my answers will be. But number 29?
Yeah.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. We start to step on each other, but good because it's getting long. We're almost there. Thrill me. Bull moose. I'm going to sleep with some more youngins. I didn't even realize I had 2 Tom Atkins in a row. Yes. Banging hot chicks.
No joke. Tom Atkins, what a stud.
Happy Halloween. This is my Tom Atkins mustache going here. I'm missing my clippers right now. But
my number 29 is a repeat. Stephen King's Pet Cemetery.
Lemieux?
That's a cemetery with an S. And we're pretty close ranking that one. I'm at 29. You're not too far away.
Directed by Mary Lambert.
Yeah. Good job. Good movie. I'm pretty sure the remake's going to pale in comparison. It is a scary thing. It's scarier to more people than the level of scary for me. It wasn't that scary. But it was creepy enough. Way better than Cujo and Christine.
Pet Cemetery 2 is almost made my list.
Yeah, it's a pretty good movie, too. That one's fun.
It's effective.
So what's your number 28?
28. Wolfen, another repeat. Wolfen. It's not a werewolf movie, but it came out the same year that 2 other werewolf movies came out.
Right.
All 3 of those movies happen to make my list.
Yeah.
They're not the only werewolves.
Yeah, that movie, if you compare it to werewolf movies, then it pales because it's not exactly a werewolf movie. Wolfen is more of a detective movie and a heritage mythology kind of movie, and leaves you up to whether you're, believing if this shit's really real or not.
There's a lot of movies when I was younger I found myself watching, no matter how boring a kid my age would think it would be.
Right.
And a lot of times at that age, the young age, 10, 11, 12, 13, impressionable age, comedic actors stuck out. You would mention Michael J. Fox or whatever. But guys like Albert Finney, you realize after, at least for me when I got older, I was like, oh, I'm immersed in this movie because the acting is so damn good.
Right.
And that's one that I just want to see what he's going to do next. He's an alcoholic. He's over the top, over the hill, and so he's got all this, and he just goes about his day. My idol, man.
That was number 28.
I think it was number 28. Yes.
My number 28 is Fright Night.
Oh.
One of my favorite vampire movies, and I'm not a fan of vampire movies, but that one was good. It was fun. It had a lot of great characters in it. Characters that I cared what was going to happen. Once again, unimpressive male lead. But the chick from Married with Children, I always thought she was cute as a button. I just enjoyed her. And then, of course, Evil, the sidekick, right?
Caught it out, Evil.
And then, of course, the great Chris Sarandon as the debonair and suave vampire.
Grumpy's boy.
And the guy that helps him. And then, of course, the epic vampire slayer on TV.
Roddy McDowall.
Roddy McDowall's a classic.
Peter Vincent.
And that dynamic is interesting and a twist and not done very well by other movies. And this one, it works great. And I loved how it ended. And Fright Night. Some people think it's goofy. I think it's one of the best vampire movies ever made.
Definitely in the 80s.
That's my number 28. What you got for number 27?
Number 27, I have Misery. That's one that I said, okay, this is a lot better than the 26 movies I have ahead of it. But, well, as far as being well made, well acted, Academy Award stuff going on here. Just not really enough of a horror movie. It didn't really scare me, but it was suspenseful. It's Stephen King, and the book is horrific. She uses a sledgehammer in the movie, but she uses an axe in the book. He ain't walking around with a cane at the end of the book. So it is from a horrific tale. It's not on your list, is it?
Nope.
Yeah. That's the highest of the, well, there's one other movie that really doesn't belong on this list that's still in my top 25, but we'll get to that later. Misery, number 27.
All right. Number 27 for me is the anthology known as Creep Show.
Creep Show.
With special effects by Tom Savini, right?
Yes. All of it.
And written and presented to us, developed by the great Stephen King and the great George Romero, who directed all of it. And once again, Tom Atkins.
Tom Atkins, he's in the wraparound, man.
Yep. Creep Show was great. All of the different stories were great. The cockroach one was horrific for me. Absolutely horrifying on a level that very few things can do to me. So I thought the birthday cake one was fun. The one with Ted Danson and Leslie Nielsen was really good. Leslie Nielsen taking that drama turn and horror villain, and it works. And it was freaky. And then the one with Stephen King was just downright odd. Yeah, I like Creepshow a lot.
And The Crate.
The Crate was probably my favorite one, with Hal Holbrook and Adrienne Barbeau, and a lot of blood and a lot of flashes of dream sequences and wanting to kill this woman, and there was a perversion to it. I loved Creepshow. The Crate was definitely my favorite one. That's number 27 for me. And this is the last one on our list for this video, number 26.
Glad you hung out. Hung in there, did you?
Well, if you like 80s horror movies, why wouldn't you?
Number 26, another movie that's not a horror movie, but it's the great John Carpenter, and it's the great wrestling icon, Rowdy Roddy Piper. They Live.
They Live. Wow.
They Live, number 26, on my list because it's a John Carpenter film. And I couldn't bring myself to put Christine on my list.
They Live is sci-fi, and it's a political commentary, but it's also horror because it's a horrific realization of the society we live in, and they are monsters, and there's a lot of government control going on here. They Live is on my list as well.
It's nightmarish because it's true. No shit.
That's subliminal shit, man. I worry about that crap. You start flashing lights in a commercial, and I'm not watching. Fuck you, man.
I have come here to eat sushi and take a shit on a sushi bar. And I don't like sushi.
They Live is higher up on my list. Number 26.
And the last movie that we'll be reviewing in this video.
Number 26 is my first installment into the greatest slasher franchise of all time, the Friday the 13th series.
Oh.
Nothing after part 6 is worthy of mentioning. And I've already exhausted both the Halloweens. So we're going to get a good taste of Friday the 13th from both of us probably in the next video, the higher up on the list. My entry at number 26 is Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, which didn't feature Jason. It's part 5. It was one of the greatest cinematic experiences of my life. And
theater-going experiences.
It was, from beginning to end, action-packed, I thought, just extremely flowing with all the different murders happening at a decent pace, and the murders were really good. I loved the kills. I loved the originality of the kills, and that kind of bummed me out when it wasn't Jason at the end. Yeah, this guy was a little too clever. He came up with some interesting kills. I like the special effects. So that's my number 26.
I'll talk about it since it's not on my list.
Oh, it's not.
No, I took our major players and just put a couple of my favorite movies from each franchise. So like a couple of Halloweens, a couple of Freddy's, a couple of... So yeah, I don't have them all. If I represented them as my favorite horror movies, then it would be half of my top 50. Would be Freddy, Jason, Michael,
Leatherface.
Leatherface.
There's only one movie then in the 80s, but I included the ones if I thought the movie was good enough to be on the list. And so, yeah, I've got 6 Friday the 13th on my list, and that was the first one that I'm mentioning.
What had it for me was I thought Tommy could be the killer the whole time. Looking back,
yeah,
it's disappointing that he wasn't, but by the time the movie was over, I was glad it wasn't him because we hadn't had enough Tommy, and we needed Tommy to defeat Jason, which he does in another movie.
Right. At the very end, he's wearing the hockey mask, and you think he's going to kill the girl, and then
yeah, they went nowhere with it.
Right, and they
just put him back in an asylum, I guess.
Right. It it worked for me. Like I said, I like the kills and stuff. So, all right, that's our list. Part 1, 50 through 26 of our top 50 favorite horror movies of the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you guys tuned in. Subscribe to Rosenfield 10 for more videos like this. Ring the bell so you'll know when part 2 of this comes out. We'll be doing 25 through 1. I'm Joe.
I'm James.
And thank you for tuning in to Twin Perspective. We will see you in the trees. Bye.